The first thing I do every day when I wake up is thank God for letting me make it through the night and giving me another day of life, just because sometimes I wake up, and I cannot believe I'm doing what I'm doing. I just thank him. I don't know how I deserve it, but it's completely because of him. Just because a man lacks the use of his eyes doesn't mean he lacks vision. I force people to have coffee with me, just because I don't trust that a friendship can be maintained without any other senses besides a computer or cell phone screen. Work for something because it is good, not just because it stands a chance to succeed. Tremendous amounts of talent are lost to our society just because that talent wears a skirt. Look, I can't dim my shine just because some people feel uncomfortable. I have no use for people who throw their weight around as celebrities, or for those who fawn over you just because you are famous. I think there are many times when it would be most efficient to use nuclear weapons. However, the public opinion in this country and throughout the world throw up their hands in horror when you mention nuclear weapons, just because of the propaganda that's been fed to them. Just because everything is different doesn't mean anything has changed. Just because you are CEO, don't think you have landed. You must continually increase your learning, the way you think, and the way you approach the organization. I've never forgotten that. I love Christmas, not just because of the presents but because of all the decorations and lights and the warmth of the season. Don't take your toys inside just because it's raining. Just because fate doesn't deal you the right cards, it doesn't mean you should give up. It just means you have to play the cards you get to their maximum potential. I don't have to jump up and smile just because TV wants me to. People take different roads seeking fulfillment and happiness. Just because they're not on your road doesn't mean they've gotten lost. Just because you put a guy in a tuxedo doesn't make him a good guy. I have discovered that just because we grow weaker physically as we age, it doesn't mean that we must grow weaker spiritually. Just because I don't have a college degree doesn't mean I am not smart. Just because you have an exotic animal as a pet does not make you a danger or irresponsible. Knowledge is not just the preserve of the educated elite. Just because someone has not had a formal education, that does not mean he does not have wisdom and common sense. Just because we can't find a solution it doesn't mean that there isn't one. Just because I made it look easy doesn't mean that it was, and you don't work hard and become a Hall of Famer without working day in and day out. New York may be the city that never sleeps, but Shanghai doesn't even sit down, and not just because there is no room. Just because it's in print doesn't mean it's the gospel. Just because you got money doesn't mean you're gonna be happy, and just because you can buy everything in the world doesn't mean you're gonna find your purpose. We're just into toys, whether it's motorcycles or race cars or computers. I've got the Palm Pilot right here with me, I've got the world's smallest phone. Maybe it's just because I'm still a big little kid and I just love toys, you know? Just because nobody complains doesn't mean all parachutes are perfect. There are no morals in politics, there is only expedience. A scoundrel may be of use to us just because he is a scoundrel. Just because you're good at some things doesn't mean you can't be better at them. Just because you can afford it doesn't mean you should buy it. People have to realize that just because you're a Christian, it doesn't mean that you're perfect, because every once in a while everyone stumbles. Living by faith is about when you do mess up, getting back up, brushing yourself off, and keep trying to improve where you mess up or where you have temptation. I prefer ordinary girls, you know, college students, waitresses, that sort of thing. Most of the girls I go out with are just good friends. Just because I go out to the cinema with a girl, it doesn't mean we are dating. We must not fear daylight just because it almost always illuminates a miserable world. Just because you're working does not mean you're making money. That's two very different things in show business. A treat is different from a reward, which must be justified or earned. A treat is a small pleasure or indulgence that we give to ourselves just because we want it. Treats give us greater vitality, which boosts self-control, which helps us maintain our healthy habits. Just because you're struggling with self-discipline doesn't mean you have to raise the white flag and declare your self-improvement efforts a complete failure. Instead, work to increase the chances that you'll stick to your healthier habits, even when you don't feel like it. For the first time in my adult lifetime, I am really proud of my country, and not just because Barack has done well, but because I think people are hungry for change. And I have been desperate to see our country moving in that direction. I'm not a role model. Just because I dunk a basketball doesn't mean I should raise your kids. When people say, I don't see you enough, well, just because you don't see me don't mean I don't exist, or just because you haven't heard me don't mean I haven't been making noise. But if I keep making noise, you'll pick up. Free speech is one of the most important things to me, but I think it gets confusing when it comes to offense. Because for one, just because you have the right to say anything, it doesn't mean you have to. Just because I don't smile a lot, people think, yeah, he must have a bad attitude. But if you don't know me, you don't know me. That was the problem. My face is just serious. Just because you've seen My Cousin Vinny doesn't qualify you to be a federal judge. I don't go by or change my attitude based on what people say. At the end of the day, they, too, are judging me from their perspective. I would rather be myself and let people accept me for what I am than be somebody who I am not, just because I want people's approval. I think of horror films as art, as films of confrontation. Films that make you confront aspects of your own life that are difficult to face. Just because you're making a horror film doesn't mean you can't make an artful film. Just because you like my stuff doesn't mean I owe you anything. Just because I look sexy on the cover of Rolling Stone doesn't mean I'm naughty. I used to be very revenge motivated, but that's just because I'm a Scorpio. Now I'm more so, practice honesty just because it makes you feel better. Just because your voice reaches halfway around the world doesn't mean you are wiser than when it reached only to the end of the bar. I pretty much try to stay in a constant state of confusion just because of the expression it leaves on my face. Friendship is two-sided. It isn't a friend just because someone's doing something nice for you. That's a nice person. There's friendship when you do for each other. It's like marriage, it's two-sided. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.